morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we are talking about skin tones, fixing the broken stuff and the death of the PARcan on Light Talk.
And this is David in the frozen tundra of Central City, Colorado. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Every day, every week, we still are.
Sometimes we have our sister Ann, and now
That's
that we're
right.
talking about it, we would like to thank Sister Ann for coming in for the last 3 episodes. It's wonderful that she was there. She was certainly a great addition for the Elaine McCarthy interview. And boy, was that some interview.
It's great.
I've got nothing but great feedback about that. So thank you, Elaine, for joining us and being part of the Legends of Lighting series. So our sister Ann was in Prague last week, signing books, presenting papers, doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, she's looking at old theaters last week.
You know, she's getting pretty big.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, we're not going to be able to afford her anymore.
It's true. She's pricing herself out of the Lumen Brother market.
And it doesn't take a lot to price yourself out of this market. So since Ann was holding down the fort with us, that gave you the opportunity to truly explore Amsterdam.
It's to Amsterdam and Copenhagen. And let me thank Ann for giving me the freedom to go and get away from it all and hang out in those socialist countries, which I actually found pretty nice. And the gray light, there was gray light everywhere, but it was a beautiful gray light. And the beautiful gray light stayed up until about 10:30 at night, which we loved. And we just had a blast. We had just immersed ourselves in mostly fine art. It was a big museum trip. Didn't get to see many operas or theater, but we did spend a lot of time with Rembrandt and Monet and Rousseau and you name it, and the Dutch art and the Danish art and the architecture and the food and the people. It was wonderful. And even just certain days of just going to the park, and watching the swans. There was relaxation intermixed with stimulation. And I was also struck, and this is going to sound weird, but I'm really sensitive to noise these days, it seems. And I was struck by, even in the inner cities, even in Amsterdam Center, which is really urban, packed, dense people, it wasn't loud. I don't know what it was. It was like the trams are electric, so they're not loud. There's only so many cars. There's not like massive amounts of traffic. And it was people are sitting on the sidewalks and having meals and coffee. And I was like, it's quiet. And I was like amazed at how that the acoustics were different somehow for me. But, seeing the Rembrandt exhibition was a highlight for sure. Seeing the Van Gogh Museum was a highlight. Also going to Elsinore, what's not really a castle, but the place where Shakespeare sets Hamlet was quite cool. And they were actually performers performing scenes from Hamlet as you were walking through what really was a taxing station where the ships had to stop and pay their taxes. And so just fantastic energy and vibe. You can see, all the Shakespeare's words, but I'll be posting lots of pictures.
Hey, you even found and interviewed a Light Talk listener while you were there.
Yes, I should say that. We found a laundromat I think that one was in Copenhagen. And we met this guy and we just started talking, and it turned out he was a cinematographer. And I mentioned Light Talk, and he goes, "Oh, that's really interesting." I said, "Would you like to be interviewed?" And he said, "Are you kidding? I would love it." So we stood there in the laundromat with my cell phone. And his name was Mortine Lovechild. I can't remember his last name, but I have it in my phone. And he recorded on his phone because for some reason my phone, I didn't have the memo thing working. And it was an interesting interview. David's going to edit, and we're going to get a release for him, and we're going to play that little short. We have the laundry machine dryer sound in the background for the ambiance.
Yeah, great ambiance. Love the laundry machines. I was listening to it. I was laughing. I said, yeah, this is going to be good. So yes, we're doing it.
It's remarkable that we have created a worldwide community. I'm going to think up a sponsor where we're going to have like Light Talk B&B hosters in different countries. So Light Talk people can connect with other Light Talk people in different countries when they're traveling. Who knows?
It's great to have you back, Stan. And we're
Thank you.
Really happy that you rejuvenated your artistic soul. by seeing all those great museums. And that's something we should all be doing more often.
We should be. Yeah, absolutely.
So let me tell you about what's happening up here in the frozen tundra. First of all, both shows are going well. We finished Lighting Billy Budd, and we'll finish Madam Butterfly tomorrow. But what is so surprising this year is this cockamamie weather. Central City is 8,600 feet up in the Rockies, and my flat is another 500 feet above that. And a few days ago, which happened, by the way, on the second day of summer, I woke up to a snowstorm. Snowstorm.
It's the mountains.
Yeah, but I've been coming up here for 20 years, and it has never been this cold this late in the summer. And what makes it all worse is that the Opera House, which was built in the late 1800s, was built above a running mountain stream. And the reason why they did this was so that the theater would stay cool during the warm summers. Oh. So it's always like 10 to 20 degrees colder in the theater. That's great for the summer, but not so great when it's in the 30s outside and you are teching a show. So
wow.
we have been bundling up for our lighting sessions. There's no heat, by the way, in this theater.
How about space heaters? You guys got space heaters?
Yeah, we got space heaters, but I laugh at your space heaters.
Okay.
There's some other new news, and that is, could the live actor be finally dead?
What?
Yes, I got this off the internet. Of course, we have to believe everything on the internet, but this company called Base Entertainment brings holograms of Maria Callas and Roy Orbison performing digitally remastered renditions of their biggest hits and interacting with both onstage musicians and the audience. Now, this is interesting. I would like to see this. And finally, we're really excited about today's Let's Talk About segment, The Death of the PARcan.
So, that needs a sound effect.
Yes. We will put one in. So let's get started. Steve has our first listener question.
Hey, let me make a comment about this hologram stuff.
Okay.
2007, that was Celine Dion and Elvis. 2012, you see Tupac on stage. And in 2016, a hologram opened up for Madonna for her Asian tour. It's a rock and roll star in Japan called Hatsumi Miku, and she's a hologram, and she performs with a live band. She's opening for Madonna. And just a few weeks ago, you had the Music Awards with Madonna performing with a hologram for the 2019 awards. So absolutely, this is happening.
This is happening.
All right, so that first question today comes from Joanne in Canada, and she wants to know, how do you schedule upkeep and repair on your equipment in a busy space? Well, that's not so bad. I mean, there's a couple things. Set aside some time at your strike. When you're striking equipment and you see something that's a problem, go ahead and repair it before you put it back in the air for the next show. Probably not every light you own is typically hung on every show. So again, the lights then aren't in the air. Take a look at them. Give them a once-over. See if they have to be fixed. Also, if you have an off-season, as I do, we do repair during the off-season. And the way that works for us is we have about a 3% overage, 4% overage in our inventory. So if a light has to come out of service and we can't get to it immediately, we can put it in the repair bin and not look at it until the off-season comes along. So that's one approach to it.
Yeah, so at my place, we have the challenge, as maybe you do, of a very, very busy place. Even our summers, we get maybe 3 weeks off. So the way we handle it is, what some suggestions might be, I used to work in a rental house. So if you got a piece of gear that comes in that really needs work, you tag it and you put it in a certain place, and you sort of know where they are, and they're waiting for the time. So when time frees up, when either you have when the show is running or when you have a down day, or you can kind of get to that. Try and stay on top of little. I think Steve's point is stay up on little things. You notice something, whenever it might be, get on it right away, so they don't back up. But I think it is a challenge in busy spaces. But I just think if it was me, I would just have a method of either a colored tape or a tag, write down what the problem is, tie it to the yoke, and then when the time is available, you put somebody on that task and get it maintenance. Ideally, we have done things in August when things tend to slow down, and we'll do like try and bench focus every fixture, try and clean lenses. But it is a challenge. But I think if you just separate those fixtures out, so they're just waiting for attention, and then when the time is there, you give them the attention. Well, I have the next question, and it looks like Johans from Ghana. Is that Johans?
I'd say it's Johannes from Ghana. Okay. And by the way, Ghana is one of our new countries.
Cool. Well, let me say it. Say it correctly, and we can jump in on that. Johannes from Ghana wants to know. He works with a lot of people with dark skin tones, and he'd like to know what is the best way to light them. And he calls out key light and temperature and etc. So I've been thinking about this, and I went back and I reread the article that I think Steve Woods posted a while back about from a cinematographer about how to light people with darker skin tones, and it got into this thing about, it was really for video, and it talked about these particular metrics that you can adjust the gamut in cameras to compensate for that. So I didn't think that was all that helpful for live work, but so I'll just respond what I think you could do for live work. But there was one interesting point from that article. It said that the base of the makeup could be a reflective base, which helps, which I think is a really cool idea. And I would also mention just in general, sort of like just in broad strokes, it's about reflectivity, and a darker object is going to reflect less light. It's just physics, and you sort of can't really change that. And you do have to think about, in any design in lighting, the materiality of the things that you are lighting. Is it reflective? If it's a mirror, it's 100% reflective. If it's a black hole, it's going to suck all the light right into it.
If it's LumaSuck,
right, it doesn't come out at all. So you do have to have sort of a consciousness about how different surfaces and materials, whether it's skin or ceramic or or clay or wood, how it's going to reflect paint, and then think about how that works in relationship to all the objects that are in the field of view. Because, so for example, I could say in a Gestalt way, well, just put more light on somebody with darker skin. But if the person with darker skin is standing next to somebody with lighter skin, and you put the same amount of light on both of them, the person with higher reflectivity is going to pull your eye. There's just sort of no way around that. So you do have to sort of think about that. In terms of, the key light, that's really a question of angle and fill and shadows. Temperature, I mean, people of different skin tones exist in all different color temperatures at different times. So if they're at a sunset, they're going to get hit by the sunset color. If they're in a fluorescent room, they're lit by that. But I would say this, that everybody's skin is basically red, some form of red, because we all have blood, and there's blue in veins, right? So I think you want to just think about tweaking color to reveal the flesh tone in a natural way, unless there's a motivational light source like a sunrise or a sunset or a red light in a bar. It's going to be a red light in the bar, but to not be afraid with how much you light. Now, I will say this, and I'll take this from a story. So we were lighting a production of August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean, and it had a range of dark skin tones. And when the set designer came, the set designer had a lot of green walls, a lot of green floor. And we know from the science side of things that your color vision is bipolar. So when you are seeing green, the signal is actually that there's less red, right? So we suggested that the scene designer rethink that palette. And they did, and they moved to more of a red blue than a green blue. And those reds helped, that rather than the green suppressing the red, which made them look bad. And we also were not afraid to turn on the lights and to give an intensity value that was necessary when you have a subject that reflects light than a subject that reflects more light. What do you guys think?
Well, your whole idea about the red pigment is true, which means to me that you really need good, high-quality color rendering fixtures from the front.
Absolutely.
Which is why I always use clear tungsten lamps from the front. And there will be a time when LED reaches a point where there will be really good TM30 renditions of red, but we're not there yet, in my opinion. So which is why, again, I have clear light from the front just to activate the skin tones. And that's the word I use, activate. Even if you have this beautiful sunset coming from stage right, it's nice to have something right from the front just to activate it. Some people call fill light, that's fine, but just make sure that fill light has a very high color rendering quality. So that's what I think. Also, just as a clarification, that article you're talking about was actually written by a makeup artist.
Yeah.
For this, I can't think of the name of the show, but it's a show with an entire black cast, and it's beautiful. And that's what I tell makeup artists now all the time. I said, really, what this person needs is reflective base. It's a reflective base. And sometimes they look at you with crossed eyes. What are you talking about? Really? And I said, yeah, try it. And they tried it, and of course, they look a lot better. And Stan, you're absolutely right. It's all about contrast. That should be a name of a show. It's all about contrast, because it really is. Adding more light does not help. Adding good light does. Adding high-quality light does. But adding more does not. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I'm going to go to the master here, and that's Hal Binkley. And what I would recommend, Johannes, if you get a chance to see Hamilton, or simply go online and look at the interviews with Hal Binkley on how he lit that show. And it's very interesting because he started with a sepia base, and he wanted to emulate the quality of light that came from tungsten fixtures. And he certainly has a lot of tungsten fixtures on the show, but he's also using a lot of color mixing fixtures. But he started with a sepia base, and he's kept that warm tungsten look. And then he segued between the foundation look to high contrast color looks. So, for example, if you take a look at the song Hurricane, he lights that in blue and green, in turquoise and yellow. And these aren't colors that we normally associate with actors who have dark skin. So, but he is simply giving you a base, bringing on the color when he needs to, and taking you back to that base to kind of cleanse your palette and put you in these hyper-real worlds. So I think there's something to be said about how you organize your show and tell the story. And I think if I were going to do, a show, I mean, I work with some companies over the years who have had a high percentage of a multiracial cast. I mean, I worked for years with a Lamone dance company, and they were the first company to actually have an interracial, multiracial, multi-continental cast. And so we have a lot of different skin tones running around on stage. And it's the same issues, I think, that Alvin Ailey has these days. Get yourself a good foundation. And for me, it was always warm. I never drifted into a cool foundation if I could avoid it, because it does have a tendency to gray people out.
Yeah. That green hitting the red. Absolutely.
I got to add one more little twist to this, and I agree with. I did see Hamilton this summer, by the way, and it's really true. He sets you up in that sepia base, and it's a brilliant design. There was an interesting article in the New York Times about Kodak and film, and how the original balance of what was neutral for film was based on this particular woman. These three women that they used as reference, and how that is now has to be changed. It's a whole history of how
I read that.
Did you read that?
Yeah, I read that. That was really interesting.
Did I post it? I don't remember if I posted it on the Facebook group or not, but that was, I think I saved that article. So fascinating that what is the reference is a choice. It
used to be made for white people. It was all
right.
about white people. It was not about people of color.
Go back and look at Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And what you're going to see there is that's Catherine Houghton, I believe. The film is lit for her. And if you take a look at the other three African-American actors, Sidney Poitier, and the other two are escaping my mind, the mother and father,
Right.
the film technique there is they are overexposed. They overexpose those three actors and film Catherine Houghton normally. And that's how they did that.
Interesting.
And that was for the first 100 years of film. I think that aesthetic has radically changed with things like 12 Years a Slave, Selma, Moonlight, Black Panther. Yeah, I mean, the industry's grown up some. Also, I think when you're lighting dark-skinned actors, if you want to do something just as an experiment, Johannes, is go ahead and set up that traditional light. Go ahead and set up a backlight, a front light, a couple side lights in there, and take a look at how those lights interact with a light-skinned actor and a dark-skinned actor. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, side light, that's it. Just side light, side light, side light. That may not be so good for a dark-skinned actor. Take a look at the levels and intensities and the angles that you're bringing the light into the stage, and you're going to see it's not even a subtle difference, it's a marked difference in how side light impacts on dark-skinned actors. And I'm not saying it's good or bad or indifferent. It's simply different. And again, if you're looking at film, it has everything to do with where you're placing that camera in relationship to those lights. In your case, you have a fixed seating area, so you know where the audience is. They're not going to move. Maybe your lighting angles need to change and modify.
I just found the article. It's called "The Racial Bias Built into Photography," and it's a really. I'll post the article. But there were three women that were used to create the standard. The Shirley card, it was called.
Yeah, the Shirley card. Yeah. So our friend Drew Belinsky from Salt Lake City. Hey, we found out where Drew lives. He lives in Salt Lake.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he could start his big fish cakes food truck stand out there now. So anyway, but he asks, what is the proper procedure for doing a channel check? It is not turning everything on to 30% and seeing if all the lights are on. Because if you do that, I mean, that's the lazy way of doing it. But if you do that, the reason why you don't want to do that is because you don't know if something's been knocked out of focus. You really need to go channel by channel by channel, not only to make sure that the light fires up, but that's still focused in the right place and not down on the audience or something
burned
like
out
that.
Filter or gobo that's whacked out or shutter that's slipped.
Exactly.
There's dozens of things that could go wrong. I have a question. How do you guys do channel checks with movers?
We just go to presets. We have a certain number of presets that we go to.
You are listening to Light Talk with Stan, Steve, and David, the Lumen Brothers. And Light Talk is sponsored this week by
Travel Light Corporation presents Nirvana Destination Club. Are you overworked and stressed? Ready to give up that horrible career? Just want to escape and get away from it all? Do you need some rest and relaxation away from your pathetic existence in some tiny Manhattan flat that you share with 3 other people who constantly drive you crazy? Allow Nirvana Destination Club come to your rescue. Nirvana Destination Club will offer you almost unlimited lodging in exclusive vacation getaways throughout the world. Our residences offer different suites exclusively designed for tech heads, 60s rock LDs, legitimate theater LDs, Vegas lighting directors, dance LDs, cinematographers, architectural designers, opera LDs, Broadway LDs, and of course, burnt-out roadies. And while other vacation clubs require a monthly fee upwards to $3,000 a month, we only ask for a small percentage of your gross earnings. For this minimal fee, you are placed in a specialized tier, depending, of course, on the ranking of your gigs. For those who specialize on Broadway and opera, expect luxury accommodations such as our estates in Carmel and the Faroe Islands. For those working in community and dinner theaters, expect our newly renovated digs at our new exclusive residence, Flem Estates, located in Los Angeles, deep in the bustling center of Skid Row. We guarantee that the only people around you will be people you associate with. No reason to worry about hobnobbing with those wealthy, entitled white millennials you see in those Inspirado commercials. You will be surrounded by agents, actors, stage managers, and drama queens. Who could ask for more? As a special bonus, every 2 years we offer you a special vacation designed especially for you by our travel agents at Travel Light Corporation. They will make sure that you are treated with the care and respect you deserve. So join our exclusive Nirvana Destination Club and relax. Everything will be just fine.
And now, back to Light Talk.
So those ducks in the background tell us that once again it's time for our ever popular Let's Talk About segment. And today we are talking about the death of the PARcan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. See you go.
Oh my God.
It's been
so
part of
sad.
my life since the beginning.
The very beginning. I was born with a PARcan.
In his mouth.
No, it was shining on my mom. She said, turn off that light. It's so bright.
My favorite high side light fixture is gone.
So, Steve, what do you think about the death of the PARcan?
Yeah, PARcan.
Who needs it anyway?
Everybody's talking about the PARcan. Good riddance. It served its purpose, and I loved it. But let's be real about the PARcan. It was hot.
It was.
It was difficult to focus.
It was.
It was heavy.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
The lamp would explode. Yeah.
Heavy?
Weigh a steel PARcan and put a lamp in it. This gets back to if you're touring.
Okay.
The best thing about the PARcan was it became aluminum.
That's true.
And all of a sudden, you had a lot of weight taken off of
Then
it.
we had
But
the chrome ones were nice.
PARcans are kind of rough. You all of a sudden you had to have a bunch of them. So let's go ahead and focus our 600 PARcans in our 4-hour focus call, or let's put some color scrollers up there. And good luck with that, because we all worked with color scrollers. We know what a piece of crap that was. We're good riddance for those too.
I agree.
So all of a sudden, the PARcan, the weight of the PARcan versus the utility of the PARcan on tour, I don't know so much about that. I mean, the PARcan came along. Rumor has it that Chip Monk brought us the PARcan from the Rolling Stones, and then it morphed up to Altman Brothers. The advantage of the PARcan was we were able to get rid of beam projectors. You toured with a beam projector or a Leco bouncing down the back of the road in a semi. You would open the doors and be parts everywhere. So the PARcan was fairly robust. But I don't know. Give me a moving light any day of the week. Give me good color mixing. Oh, man. Yes, I will miss you, but I'm not going to miss you that much.
I thought it was Brecht who took truck headlights out of old trucks and mounted them on pipes to do his theater in Germany. You ever hear that one?
Yeah. But people have been using headlights forever. I mean,
Right.
Again, I'm more talking about the PAR than the PARcan, because really the reason why the PARcan is dying or dead or soon to be dead is because the PAR is dead. They're no longer making PARs. Now, I have a very, very strong emotional connection with the PAR, and it goes way back to when I was an undergraduate in school. It started in 1975 when I was a sophomore at the University of Miami. And for longtime Light Talk listeners, and for those who would like to dig out and listen to old episodes of this crazy show, way back in episodes 2 or 3, I forgot which one it was, I talk about working with this crazy faculty director named Buckets Lowry. You guys remember? Yeah, you remember the colorblind director, right? He was colorblind, right? And by the way, do you guys know what episode of Light Talk has been listened to the most?
Number one.
That's right. Number one. Thousands of people have listened to that crazy episode. Now now that we mention it, we must publicly warn our listeners that the first 3 episodes of Light Talk, which are pretty funny, by the way, have such horrible sound that there have been instances of severe brain damage to listeners who dare to experience it. So Steve, Stan, and I, we actually discussed that one time, taking those episodes down. But our crack legal team of Fleck, Flock, Flare, and Glare, and of course their paralegal Snoot, told us that as long as we have a disclaimer at the top of the episode, we are protected. So be warned if you go back. Anyway, I digress. So back to Buckets. Buckets was a true believer in Stanislavski, right? In fact, this guy, he would probably be locked up today if he pulled such risk-taking exercises such as sense memory and emotional recall in today's classroom. But he was a real character and a great teacher and director. And I will never forget my first show with him. A true piece of crap called Sergeant Musgrave's Dance. I showed him my light plot, and he would just point at the plot and say, Jacques, and that's what he used to call me, Jacques, right? Jacques, I want a Davis here, 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 and here. I was like this 18-year-old student, so I just nodded and wondered, what the hell is a Davis? So I went back into the lighting shop, which is basically your typical graveyard. And we had a bunch of old century strands, lights that had optical fields that resembled a lava lamp. You never knew where the hot spot would be. Sometimes the hot spot would actually move while the light was on. Sometimes you would see a shadow of a palmetto bug incinerating when the intense heat of the 500-watt lamp was at full. Man, it was a trip. But the only optically consistent light that we owned were these Davises. And it certainly was the most powerful light. And guess what they were? They were PAR 64s. And the reason why it wasn't in a can, it was because it had this funky sort of shell that looked like it was ripped off of a 1963 Buick, right? But they were PARcans. So it was pretty crazy. Anyway, buckets loved to see these downlights hung from a 12-foot grid. So we would hang them. They'd probably be bar 64 narrow spots, and he would place actors directly under them so that all you saw were skulls with shadows under their eyes and noses. What we would call dramatic lighting. So these expressionistic moments left a real powerful impression on my artistic sensibilities. It is also important to remember that PAR strip lights, or what we used to call PAR strips, were used quite often in rep plots. They were used as backlight mostly. Gave you a very powerful backlight wash with 3 colors. So if you had PAR 64s, 3 circuits, you can mix the 3 colors and get a nice backlight wash of multiple colors. Theron used them, Gilbert used them. Hey, we all used them. And also, Gilbert used to take PAR 64 strips, stand them on end, and put them on booms, and basically use them as vertical toning strips. These VTSs would give you a great low-angled blast of colored side light. So those are really quite useful and something that Gilbert pioneered. And it was due to these PARs that I still use them. And they do give you a great, powerful stroke of incandescent light. And I have about 50 on these 2 shows I'm doing up here. And they're great. They're absolutely wonderful. So I'm very sad to see them go. But PAR lamps last a very long time, and it may be several years until they are completely gone from our toolbox.
That leads into my question. So this was Altman saying they're putting the PARcan at what they called end of life from the article that somebody posted. But does that mean that GE and Sylvania and Ushio are going to stop manufacturing the lamp? Does anybody know?
Yeah, that's why Altman is pushing the PARcan into end of life. The lamp manufacturers are shutting down.
I see. Okay. So
there'll be a couple Chinese manufacturers that go with it, but the ones I've looked at do not have anywhere near the life expectancy of, say, a GE or an Osham or a Sylvania. So, I mean, good luck. You'll be changing a lamp every other week.
Oh,
if
my God.
If you use them. It'll be really short. I mean, I'm talking 100 hours maybe.
Wow.
Really short lamp life.
you think somebody will come up with an LED retrofit lamp for everybody who has the cans?
But it's not. It's not a PARcan anymore.
No, it's not.
I mean,
right.
the thing about it is you're looking for that quality of light and that intensity of light and the warmth of it and the punch and the gut of it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, someone can come up and put an LED inside a can, but it won't be a parabolic illuminized reflector. It'll just be an LED stuck in there.
Right.
I think it's gone the way of the dodo. But also, it's more, it's more than just the lamp. It is color mixing.
Yep.
We have limited amounts of time and money and space. People want a fixture that does 5 things instead of 1 thing.
So Steve has our last listener question.
Yes, and this question popped up about a month ago, and we're finally getting around to it. Ben Mills from the UK writes, as a college student, what are some good ways to learn about lighting design and develop my own lighting designs? I'm from the UK and not currently studying design yet. Well, what I would say is see as much as you can see. Go to every club, go to every theater, go to every ballet, every opera. Watch television. Watch the really good shows that are well lit. Go to the films. See that. Go to the museums. Look at what painters are doing with light. Wander into that theater you've never wandered into before and ask to see the resident lighting designer and talk to he or she about assisting, sitting in the theater quietly with a cup of tea, watching them work. It is about getting involved. The technology and that stuff is going to happen once you get in class. But right now, you can be preparing for that by just becoming educated about the art of design.
I would agree with everything Steve said. And one thing he said that is resonating with me that I maybe will emphasize a bit, to understand how to do it for the stage, going to see stuff is the best. But in terms of understanding how to use light artistically, how to think about it, I was so struck this trip in these museums, really taking the time and looking at the work of masters, Dutch masters in particular, Rembrandt in particular. There was displays of Rembrandt's etchings that I'd never seen before. For example, the size of a postage stamp, where he is just scratching with a pen hatch marks to make the highlight and shadow to create the form. And I thought, how cool is that to look at and understand what he's doing? So I think by looking at great artists who render light will really kind of raise your sensitivity to be artistic. And then how you apply it to story, I think, as Steve says, is best observed by watching performance in action in all the formats that Steve has mentioned.
Yes, and also don't forget about the world around you. Go outside, look at the atmospheres, feel it, see it for the first time, analyze it, take a camera, take photographs, look at the light, analyze how that light is making you feel. You know, all these are very, very important fundamentals of being a lighting artist.
You know, David's point about photography, I take a camera on every trip I go, and I'll be going through 1,100 photographs the next couple of weeks, because I get to look at the work again and to analyze it. And when you are photographing, you are graphing photons. You are analyzing, and you look closely, as David says, as to what light is doing and how it is behaving. Develop an eye for light, and then you'll figure out through your own artistic muse how you want to apply light when you're in control of it yourself.
Well, guys, that Hammond organ solo in the background tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. Check out our website on lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on our Facebook group. Also, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, TuneIn, Player FM, SoundCloud, and most other podcast sites. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
But just remember, if you choose to litigate us, our law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flair, and Glare, and the paralegal snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you this week from Central City, Gainesville, and deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss the life expectancy of static lights, discrete timings, and summer stock war stories.
All of that stuff and a new sponsor, Light Talk. We are broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everyone.
Light Talk.